Well, it has certainly been a while since I've uploaded on this channel, which honestly, I think I say this at least once or twice a year ever since I rebooted this channel back in, what was it, 2021, I think? 2020, something like that. Oh man. So, as you can see from the title of the video and the thumbnail, I'm going to be talking about Mass Effect, which, if you don't know, if this is the first time you're seeing my channel, you will know that I really enjoy talking about Mass Effect. But it actually has been a long time since I've gotten into the series. Like, since I've talked about it, since I've discussed it, since I've played it. But I'll get more in those details way later on, as if you're not familiar with these types of videos, I really don't put a lot of effort into these videos. I just put up a screensaver, I just talk. There's no script in front of me. I'm just like, you know what, let me just talk from the heart, give my honest opinion and some stories about me discovering something that I like, going through my experiences, at least that I remember from playing these things. That's, mostly just games. I don't really like talking about much of anything else because I'm just boring like that. And yeah, Mass Effect, there's a lot to talk about with this series, specifically the trilogy. Not so much Andromeda, but I'll give it some points in a little bit. And with the upcoming N7 day around the corner, I feel like it's a nice time to start talking about this series again. Maybe like, ooh, maybe there might be something. You never know. I actually plan on releasing this video on N7 day. Like, I'm currently recording this on the 2nd, but I might just have YouTube premiere this on N7 day itself, or maybe the day before. I don't know. That's just, I change my mind all the time. So yeah, Mass Effect. It is still to this day probably a top 3 of my favorite series, my favorite franchise. It's definitely my favorite trilogy when compared to a lot of other games that have similar experiences. For example, Witcher, which is kind of a controversial take, especially from a channel that's literally named Metal Witcher, but I don't know, man. Witcher 3 just kind of clears the first 2 games, but that's a topic for another day. Yeah, Mass Effect, and I used to think that Mass Effect was actually a better trilogy than Dragon Age, and in some ways I still do sort of agree with that. I feel like as a cohesive unit and as a overarching story and narrative and characters and blah blah blah, all that stuff, I feel like Mass Effect is still a really good trilogy when compared to Dragon Age's approach that might feel a little more disconnected because there's different characters, different stories, different locations, blah blah blah. But I actually think that's kind of what makes Dragon Age a really good trilogy. But I think the biggest thing is that Dragon Age was, to some extent, planned as a standalone game with just Dragon Age Origins. Whereas Mass Effect, it was planned to be a trilogy. So I feel like that alone is like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. That's probably why it feels a lot more connected. There's all this extra stuff with it. And I think that's one reason why a lot of people love Mass Effect still to this day, is because of the trilogy. I don't think there's really, when you talk about Mass Effect, you can talk about how one specific game in the trilogy affects your life and why you love it so much, but I feel like most of the fan base will agree that, like, you just can't play one Mass Effect game without indulging in the other games, except Andromeda. I'm not going to spend the whole day talking about Andromeda, I promise. I'll actually, like I said, I'll give it some brownie points, but what I'm trying to say is that, you know, the trilogy as a whole is Mass Effect, whereas I just don't think that, for example, if you play Mass Effect 1, you have to go to Mass Effect 2. Like, there's really no stopping point for Mass Effect unless you want to just skip Mass Effect 3, like the disappointment of the ending, unless you play it with mods like I do. This is getting a little more complicated. So, okay, let's get into the meat and potatoes, like when I started playing Mass Effect and why I love it so much. So, it was actually back during, I think it was 2013 when I was introduced to it because I had a buddy who was in I was in, yeah, I was in middle school. I think it was seventh grade, yeah, and he actually lent me his copies of the trilogy. Like he had like each of them on disc, and I was like, okay, cool. Now I don't remember this first playthrough. The only thing I remember is romancing Liara, and I did the horrible ending where you like shoot the Starbrat at the very end, get the refusal ending, and then I just never played the games again. So, and I unfortunately don't remember what happened to those copies of the trilogy because we actually ended up moving, and yeah, so sorry about that. Never gave him his games back. I hope he's doing all right. He's probably cursing my name somewhere. And then I did play Andromeda when it first came out in 2017, but by that point my memory of the trilogy was so like I was just focused on other things at the time, and honestly the trilogy it just didn't resonate with me as much as it did when I picked it up way later in life. But I actually do remember liking Andromeda at one point, and I actually got kind of far into it. But there was just that one stopping point where I was just like, you know what? No, this game is just not for me. And it was, it happens. Some games you just can't play. It's one reason why there's just a lot of games out there that people will say are good. And, I'm just like, okay, I believe you. And then I just never play it because, I just feel like those games are just not going to be for me. And that's okay because I've pretty much accepted that in life, I am just not going to be able to do everything, and that's fine. You don't have to. So that's a little philosophical for a Mass Effect video, but I'm sure it'll probably get worse as time goes on. So it was 2021, and I see the announcement for the Legendary Edition, which I imagine is probably when a lot of people got introduced to the series. It's kind of like how it's like when you look at Resident Evil, like it's kind of divided into three separate categories. You have the people that have been there since the beginning, you have the people that got introduced with Resident Evil 4, and then you have the people that got introduced with Resident Evil 7. That's kind of the same thing with Mass Effect, although I feel like it's really just the people who grew up with the original trilogy and the people who got introduced with the Legendary Edition. Both are extremely valid ways to play this trilogy. Although, of course, I do ultimately prefer the Legendary Edition, especially when it comes to modding. I just feel like it's a lot more convenient. It's kind of the same thing with Skyrim, like the base game versus the special edition. Like it's just I don't know, it's just a little bit more convenient. But that's beside the point. And oh yeah, that's another thing. The Legendary Edition is on modern consoles, which that helps a lot. So I see the Legendary Edition announcement, and I'm like, oh, I remember those games. I pre-ordered it because I had the money to do it. I actually canceled the pre-order because I was like, "Oh, wait, the ending sucked. Like, why would I want to play through that again?" Blah blah blah. So I canceled the pre-order. Give it a day or two. And I'm like, "Nah, I need something else to play besides Overwatch because that was when I was starting to get back into Overwatch, unfortunately. I had a horrible friend group and we were playing Overwatch. Dropped my phone like a freaking idiot. I don't know if you heard that. Um, So yeah, pre-ordered the game again, didn't cancel it again, and then it was like May, I think. I don't remember the exact day, but it was in May. I remember that. I think. Yeah, 2021 was a cursed year. Just the whole early 2020s was cursed. So I take a break from playing Overwatch to go into Mass Effect 1. Now I do remember this playthrough. This playthrough was interesting because my memory was like I remember nothing about the original trilogy. Like I remember nothing. So I was going in Like, okay, like this is brand new. And honestly, this is like what I consider my first actual playthrough of Mass Effect because, I mean, like I said, when I was younger, you know, if I remembered the playthrough, that'd be different. But like, I just don't really consider that quote canon in my number of playthroughs of Mass Effect. So this one was really the first one that I consider like, oh yeah, like that's when I started playing for realsies. But I just wanted to include the other one just for the sake of admin lore, just so you have an idea of when I got introduced to the series, like for realsies. I gotta stop saying that. That sounds really weird coming out of my mouth. So yeah, I played through Mass Effect 1, Romance Liara, mainly just to get the Paramore achievement, and plus, I did like Liara in Mass Effect 1 on my first playthrough, so much to the point where I was like, oh, once you go blue, nothing else will do, and I hate that so much. Mass Effect 2 comes around, I'm like, oh yeah, no, Miranda, she's hot, kind of reminds me of Yennefer, because I'm basic. But that was also when I started to really like other characters too, like Garrus and Tali, and I was just like, oh, okay, like these guys are interesting. I love them, and I really like Tali, and it's honestly insane thinking back now, like that I had the willpower to reject Tali, especially with hindsight. It's actually really crazy thinking about it now. It's that literally birthed an Instagram account, but I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Um, I did the suicide mission and I unfortunately lost Mordin, and I was so confused because I thought I did everything right, but I clearly didn't, so that kind of sucked. So I was like, and I didn't feel like reloading, so I'm just like, all right, I'm sorry, Mordin, we're gonna go into Mass Effect 3 without you. And yeah, this playthrough was a little cursed for that reason and a few others that I haven't mentioned. So Mass Effect 3 rolls around, I commit to the Miranda romance. I'm just like, okay, it's cool. It's not bad. I mean, it could be better. Then, before the final battle, obviously we get the infamous moment of going to talk to Garrus, and we find out that he and Tali are seeing each other, and I'm just like, oh, okay, that's cursed. And of course, I was an idiot, so like the warning signs were just not clear to me until like rewatching my footage, and I was like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. They were flirting, which is kind of weird, but not really. And then I did the final battle, and Garrus went down. We had like a bro to bro, like, hey, no, you gotta get out of here, bro. And like from that point in Mass Effect 3, I really did enjoy Garrus and Tali. I loved having them as squad mates and or party members, however you want to talk about it. I enjoyed other characters too. I loved Javik. I enjoyed James. Still did enjoy Liara at that point in my playthrough. I loved EDI. I really would have liked to have had Mordin in Mass Effect 3, especially considering his presence is what makes a very crucial part of the game that memorable for me, but oh well. And then I finished the game for the first time, and it was emotional, but it wasn't quite as emotional as the subsequent playthroughs that would be coming later on. And then I was like, okay, I'm all in on Mass Effect. And then I actually committed more to this series because on my birthday, June 11th, 2021, I bought the Legendary Edition on the PC. Now, I didn't mod it, but I did use a tool to like give max credits because, that's just fun, having more money, more money. So then this time I did a playthrough that I still have not been able to replicate to this day, which was a FemShep playthrough, which sucks because I actually really enjoyed playing as FemShep because I was like, okay, like this is going to be a playthrough where I make different choices, romance Garrus, I'm still gonna romance Liara just to get the Paramore achievement for Mass Effect 1, just so I never have to worry about doing it again. And yeah, this was actually a really good playthrough because I saw a bunch of stuff. I missed on the first playthrough, I did a bunch of different choices. I wasn't like Renegade, but I was making more choices that would be like, okay, yeah, let's just see what will happen if I do this. Jennifer Hale's voice acting is just wonderful for either Paragon or Renegade, but I feel like Renegade is just really good. Like her voice just matches that for making those types of decisions. Even just the funny ones too. She's just a goated voice actress. Mark Mir is good too. Um, and yeah, and this was also the playthrough where I really started to get more into the character investments. Like I really started to love Joker. He was a highlight on this playthrough, but I also, of course, this is the playthrough that I really started to get like into liking Tally a lot more, which I'm thankful for. Um, Getting to see like that platonic, kind of sister friendship vibe that she brought to the table. It was really fun. And I started to bring her on a lot more missions. Obviously, Garrus was with me the whole game. His romance was really memorable. I really wish that I had the footage that I had because I did record it, but unfortunately, they got corrupted because I was horrible at recording my videos back then. Now I'm a lot more nitpicky with how I record them, like the software I use and all that stuff. But that was the first time that I really started to like get into recording my PC footage. I was just like, man, whatever though. So did the FemShip playthrough, and I actually felt a lot more shitty at the end of the playthrough when it comes to emotion. Garrus went down again in the finale, but this time it was a lot more heart wrenching. Like, oh man, like that sucks. That really sucks. But I still loved it a lot. And then I actually did the smart thing. I took a break and I played some other games. I forget exactly what I played. But the whole time I was away from Mass Effect, I was planning the next playthrough. The third playthrough, the infamous third playthrough. And to this day, I still think, I still consider this my best playthrough of the trilogy. You know the one I'm talking about. It's the one where I romance Tally for the very first time. Like, I was a bleeding heart Paragorn? What? I almost said that. Paragon, um, the whole way through. Made, like, a few renegade choices. Like, I basically wanted this to be the perfect, quote, canon male shep run for my personal preference. Didn't romance Liara in Mass Effect 1, didn't romance anybody in Mass Effect 1, just saved myself for Tally. Um, and yeah, doing like this isn't gonna just be like about the romance. Obviously, there's a lot of other aspects of Mass Effect that I enjoy, but it's a big part, unfortunately, because I'm just a very depressed person, and not this romance and a lot of other character interactions specifically in just any game like this, like BioWare, or any game that really strives on character focus, narratives, and world building. Just games that I can lose myself in. It's just so fun to invest myself into these worlds and really immerse yourself in these conflicts and these relationships, especially because, like I just said, I'm depressed as hell. I'm a loner and I didn't really have a lot of friends at this point in my life. Like, it helped me with a lot of things for let's just say that for right now. So, yeah, doing the Tally romance was a very big highlight, but this was also the playthrough. I was like, okay, so I've seen the outcomes of these choices, like from both sides. I just want to do this a certain way. And I forgot to mention in the second playthrough with the FemShip one, I actually was able to save more than that time. I figured out a way to get everybody through the suicide mission guaranteed every time, and it still works. And I saw the outcome of bringing Mordin to the Crucible mission in Mass Effect 3, and man, that's a part that still gets me. And I don't want to think about it right now because I probably will cry. But Same thing with Mass Effect 3. And this was the playthrough where like I was really starting to get so invested into the emotion that a series like this can inhabit or can I'm looking for the word, but basically like yeah, like this series can it can bring a lot of emotion if it's done right with the writing and the performances. Like it can get you invested basically. And this was the first time where like I really felt like I could put myself in Shepard's place and be like, okay, like all this is happening, you know, the weight of this craziness is really starting to get to me. And then obviously the end game. And up to this point, I was expecting Garrus to go down for a third time. But no, this time Tali went down because I wasn't aware that your romance choice actually mattered in that regard. So I was like, "Oh, is she gonna die?" She didn't. But yeah, then we have the scene that birthed my Instagram account, or one of them at least, my Mass Effect account. You know, it's really crazy looking back at this. And it's one of those times where I really wish I could have recorded my live reaction to it happening because man, anyone who's done the Tali romance, you already know. You already know what I'm talking about. But for those who don't know, Tali goes down. Shepard's like, get yourself back to Rannoch, build yourself a home. Then Tali says, I have a home, come back to me. And then the Normandy evacs. And it, that scene, watching that for the first time, I was already a nervous train wreck. Even though I've already played through this ending twice at this point, this was the third time that I was playing it with the Tali romance, though. Doing it that like doing that scene for the very first time, and then having like the previous conversations with her leading up to that, you know, like where you have that little hug, and then you go into the end game. That was the most I had reacted, let's say, to a video game in a very long time. Probably since Arthur Morgan's death in Red Dead 2. I know, spoiler alert, even though that game came out in 2018, you know, spoiler alert. Um, that was like the most ugly cries. Like that was like the ugliest cry I had in a very long time when it came to like video games or entertainment, you know, just basically anything in general, you know. And then it just got worse because then we had to go through the ending, and then obviously the ending where like you see your love interest holding Shepard's name plaque in their arms and just seeing Tali stand there. It's just like, man. And the credits, and then I was so pissed off. I remember just like looking at my dog who was just like watching the whole thing with me, and I was just like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, buddy." Like, I'm going through it. And of course, my awful friend group was like, "Hey, you want to play Overwatch? You want to play competitive?" And I'm just like, "No." I did, but like it was only for like 2 or 3 games, and I just left without saying anything because I was so fucking done. And I actually deleted the game shortly after that because I was just like, nope. Man, thinking about that is just it's nostalgic because that's just kind of how I feel about Mass Effect. It's a nostalgic thing to think about. Like this screenshot that I'm looking at, which is the screensaver for this video. This was from that third playthrough. This was from the Citadel DLC, which, by the way, I haven't talked about it, but playing through that DLC for the first time was crazy. On the first playthrough, I didn't even realize it was a DLC, and then I actually had to reload it because I'm like, wait, no, everybody's not here, so it's not gonna be fun. But then obviously doing it the first time with the Garrus romance and then the first time with the Tally romance, it was just like chef's kiss, like, wow, that's perfect. Especially that scene where Tally sings like an adorable goofball. But yeah, and then it was after that playthrough that I felt the need to cope with that ending, and I actually had to read fan fiction because that's how bad it was. Like, I legit woke up the next morning still crying over it because I was like, oh my god, like, what have they done to me? And like, I was looking for any excuse to cope, and then it wasn't long after that that I finally made my Instagram account, my Mass Effect account. I have a home. Like, I literally named it after that scene. And it's also how I met. And, talking about Mass Effect was actually how I met one of my closest friends. We just we would just get into discussions about it, and then eventually we started like actually playing stuff together, like Outlast and Dead by Daylight and stuff like that. So that's another thing that Mass Effect did. It did introduce me to a lot of people, and making that Mass Effect account specifically, it actually introduced me to a lot more people that I still consider close friends to this day. And I'm always grateful for that. It's just one of those. It's a little thing to thank Mass Effect for, but I don't really think it's that little of a thing. It's more like it's a way. It's a bigger part of my life, basically, like outside of video games that I got to have because of it. So thank you, Mass Effect, for that, you bastard. So yeah, this was when I was like kind of in the video game depression rabbit hole, like, oh my god, like nothing I play will ever match Mass Effect. And then I was looking for Mass Effect references in every game I was playing after, like Fallout 3, there's a location called the Citadel. Oh my god, just like Mass Effect. Then I actually played Outer Worlds. I was like, oh my god, you could have 6 companions on a spaceship, and there's like 6 planets just like Mass Effect. It's like this old meme I saw a few years back that me and my buddies used to reference a lot, where it's just like, oh my god, this game has a dodge roll mechanic just like Dark Souls. It's just like, it's like everywhere I go, I see Mass Effect, and it was just really funny. It's funny looking back at it now, but at the time I was like going crazy. So of course, naturally, the remedy was another playthrough on the PlayStation again, this time recording my footage and uploading it. Not like the whole game, but like just like the moments that I liked specifically, which was fun. It was a fun playthrough. Like, I didn't do anything different, but like I did actually wrap up doing some trophies, and I was actually able to get all 3 platinum trophies for the Legendary Edition on the PlayStation, which was fun. Then I did the same thing for the 5th playthrough, this time on the PC, but this was the playthrough that burnt me out of Mass Effect. Like, I'm not kidding. This was the playthrough because I decided to do the same thing on the 4th playthrough, but this time record the whole game. Now, that's pretty much what I do nowadays, but the way that I did it back then, it was just so stupid looking back at it now. I wanted to make like I wanted to combine so many different clips into one big video and like spread them out across, like, it was just a really bad way to consider uploading it. And I did the same thing with Red Dead 2 not too long after that, and like the way that I do it now, it's like, I'll record missions or quests, but like if it's just something like a conversation or something, or like something that's just not related, like I'll just upload that separate, so that way you're not like waiting all day for like 3 videos to upload. Like, you can just kind of spread it out a little bit. And I just think that's better. But no, and then I still wasn't good at like video editing or using the right software. Like, nowadays, I use DaVinci Resolve and I use OBS to record, and I make sure my file formats make it to where the videos aren't like over a certain amount of gigs. back then, my clips were like over 30 gigs per upload, and I was just like, dude, like, yeah, and this was the playthrough that, like, it just, I don't know. Mass Effect never felt the same after this playthrough, unfortunately, which sucks because, I still loved it, but I also knew in my heart that I needed to play other stuff. And that's like what prompted the Red Dead 2 playthrough that I mentioned, and it actually has been over 3 years since the last time I played that game. Fun fact. Prompted a Witcher 3 playthrough, which that was actually the last time I played Witcher 3 up until recently, 3 years later, which is also crazy. But like, was still just not over Mass Effect to the point where like I was really just trying to get back into it. Now, this was also the playthrough where I started to mod for the first time. And I was seeing like all these mods on the Nexus mod community, and I was like, oh my god, I gotta download these. So, yeah, a lot of Mass Effect burnout because I just loved the world. I loved the design. I loved the music. I loved the characters. I loved the, well, most of the missions. I loved the gameplay, the combat, the exploration, even if it was a little limited. I just loved the focus that Mass Effect has with its narrative, its characters, its moments, set pieces, and I really loved how cinematic it was. Like, it was just really cool. And, not to be dramatic, but I mean, I kind of touched on it, but it was a series that did get me through quite a lot of hard times in my life, especially in 2021. Like, the world was still recovering from craziness, and then, it's just in my personal life, things were not looking too good. And here I am now, 4 years later, and things are still not looking good. I would actually say that they're looking worse than they've ever have in a while, at least. And Mass Effect it really was that security blanket for me at that time, and I'm always grateful for that. So then it was 2023. Did one last playthrough. I didn't know at the time if it was going to be the last one, but up at the time of recording, I still haven't actually done a full playthrough since, which is crazy. I started it in February and I finished it in about I think it was March 15th. And this is the playthrough basically to end all playthroughs, but of course, my footage got lost again because I was just a freaking idiot. So I can't really have anything to show for it, but it was the first playthrough that I heavily modded, and I felt really good about it. And it was also the playthrough that I used one very specific mod. Now, I don't want to say that mods can change a game, but they can. And the happy ending mod for Mass Effect 3, it was a huge help for me to get through that ending again, because there was that part of me that was just like, man, I really do not want to listen to the Starbrat ever again. So I downloaded that mod. I'm just like, you know what? Let's just try it. And it was thanks to that mod that I was able to have that closure. And I think that mod is part of the reason I still haven't really gone back to Mass Effect. Like, I'll still talk about it, I'll still share stuff about it, I'll still meme about it, of course, but I think it was at that point that I finally felt that closure that the original ending just never gave me. And I was okay. Like, I finished the game, did the Citadel DLC as the epilogue, which was actually a really wonderful way to do it. And then I just sat there looking at that home screen. I'm just like, man, I did it. And then I just went to other stuff. I played through the Dragon Age trilogy for the first time, like all three games back to back to back. which I never did before. I got introduced to Baldur's Gate after my Skyrim playthrough, and then I just kind of went on with my life, you know? A year passes and a new Dragon Age gets revealed with Veilguard, which was it was a game. It was a game inspired by Dragon Age. Let's just say that. It wasn't horrible, but it just wasn't great. And we get the N7 day teases here and there, like ooh, doo doo doo. And it's just like, even this year, I'm not expecting anything, but it is easy to feel nostalgic for something like that, like Mass Effect, especially when you realize, holy crap, like 2027 is coming up. It's going to be 20 years since Mass Effect 1 released pretty soon, which is insane. And then as I sit here, I'm going through like my Elder Scrolls Fallout rabbit hole phase, but eventually, not now, but I think eventually that is going to wear off a little bit, and I'm going to maybe consider going back to something else, maybe more story focused, more character driven, something like, I don't know, something like The Walking Dead, or something like, Red Dead 2, or something like, even like Dragon Age, or something like Mass Effect, because it's been a while. Now, there have been several attempts to go back into Mass Effect over the years since that last good playthrough in 2023. I won't deny that. Like, even this time a month ago, I was really thinking, like, okay, maybe this might be the time to do it, but it wasn't. But I don't know. I think there are just some games that are better left not going back to, but at the same time, the heart wants what the heart wants, and sometimes you just gotta rip the band-aid off and do it. Just, you know what? Just F it. Just play it, Just don't even have a plan. Just go into it and do it. And if it works, then yay. If it doesn't work, then oh well, at least you tried. It's kind of where I'm at like right now with a lot of things. It's just like, if it doesn't work out, then whatever. But if it does, good. And Mass Effect is it still is that important. It still is an important part of my life. Like, I'm looking at my office right now and I see my N7 coffee cup. It says like Commander Shepard's drink on the other side, which is really nice. And I have like an N7 coaster for it. I see my N7 bottle. I see my N7 like logo poster thing in my room, and I see a Paragon one right directly in front of me. Like, I'm wearing my N7 hoodie. Mass Effect is still a very big part of my life, despite the fact that I have not played it, like fully played it, in a really long time, and that's okay. You know, and I mean, hey, how could I forget? I'm looking at my Tally statue, which was a limited time. I still think they do sell it on the BioWare store. I'm not sure, but even if they don't, I still feel lucky to have bought it. Mass Effect is just a very big part of my life, and it's a series that I'm grateful for. And, you know, I think that it's one of those franchises that has a lot of staying power. I mean, if I were to just like make like my top 10 favorite video games of all time, I feel like the top 5 is like the hardest thing to think about, because there's just so many games I could consider being in that top 5. I think the top 3 is like Witcher 3, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, and Dragon Age Origins, but it's just like, what do I want my 4 and 5? Because we have Mass Effect, we have Final Fantasy 7, we have Baldur's Gate 3, we have The Walking Dead Season 1, we have Red Dead Redemption 2, we have Fallout New Vegas. So it's just like, there's a lot to consider just from those games alone. But either way, I mean, Mass Effect has pretty much solidified itself in that kind of category, like, of greatness, for me at least. And it's a series that I will always be grateful for. It is actually funny thinking back because that's actually the topic that got a lot of a lot of attention for my channel was some Mass Effect memes I made and some Mass Effect rants and even some showcases of mods like the Dreams Remade mod, the Happy Ending mod. It's actually really nice to think that Mass Effect also played a part in that kind of stuff, like, you know, my channel, my Instagram page. And then it also inspired me to like, you know, edit more, you know, make like wholesome or sad edits, you know, just edits in general. Like I just enjoy doing that still to this day. And then I wanted to record myself reading the fan fiction that I loved, which was You Came Back to Me by T. Bryson. It's a very good one, honestly. Still to this day, it's a pretty good fan fiction, even if it's probably just never going to be fully realized. But yeah, it's just crazy. It's just crazy to think about it. And I'm grateful. So yeah, with that being said, I mean, it is crazy. I went this whole video without like really going into like the details of the Tally romance. I was actually just thinking about that the other day because I made a squad mate ranking video. It's unlisted on my channel right now, but I was rewatching it the other day, and like just the last entry was obviously Tally as my number one, but like it's legit just like 45 minutes of just like glazing the hell out of her. Like it's it's honestly crazy. Like I did make some pretty good points to be fair, but it's just crazy. So that actually would be a video I think it would be fun to redo that and just be like a little bit more, you know, like reasonable with that. So that's a future video. Well, I'll add that to my list of videos that will probably just never get made. But yeah. Um anyways, oh yeah, I actually still do have that script for that squad mate ranking video. It's actually not a bad script to be fair. I also have a script for a video that I'm probably just never gonna make, where it's like describing why I hate the ending to Mass Effect 3. Again, I have some good points, but it's an unfinished script. It's probably never going to get finished, and honestly, it's just kind of pointless to talk about it now. So, yeah. I mean, I want to hope that N7 Day will yield something positive this year, but I also just have to be real and just be like, you know what? Like, it's probably better if they don't, because at least we have the trilogy. And despite what a lot of people will say, myself included to some extent, at least we have Andromeda, you know, because it is something different, and different is not always a bad thing. There are some things I like in Andromeda, but that might be another future video at some point. So, anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. If you enjoyed the video, appreciate you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Hopefully, it doesn't take like 6 months for another upload. That's all for now, though. I should go.